Hey everybody, Alexis Spicer here with my first official video for the Artist Colony YouTube page. If you've ever heard of this StimHack Slack team, channel, something, there's a lovely little channel on there called Artist Colony where there's a lot of makers and artists and things who are Netrunner players who kind of come together to share their ideas and to get help with stuff and to show stuff off and all sorts of stuff like that. It's really cool. I like posting my progress updates there or when I need help figuring something out, but yeah, it's great. So a couple of us there have decided to make some little video tutorials to kind of walk through how we make some of our stuff to maybe help you if you want to do the same. So I'm going to be doing a walkthrough on how I made my Gagarin alt art that I was selling at Worlds 2017. So my workflow is pretty simple, I guess. I always begin in Illustrator. And I have made a template file for myself that kind of has all your print requirements already built in. The red line out here is your bleed edge. This is the line where you need to extend all of your artwork out to. Most printing places require that you have a bleed, so just so when they cut it, there won't be any risk of seeing any white if you only draw out to here. So then they're cutting on where it's already been printed, so it'll be extending all the way to the edges. In addition to this bleed area line, I have this little cyan line in here, and that is the safe zone. Is what a lot of places call it. It's an 1/8 inch offset line on the inside this time, and this is the line where they recommend you keep all of your really important text or images just so there's no risk of them at all being cut off. This also is a pretty standard thing. It seems pretty big, but it just seems to be the standard. And this template file that I will provide has kind of weird dimensions. I took the standard 63 by 88 millimeter card size with an 1/8 inch bleed and blew it up proportionally just so you have a bigger area to work in. I always like to kind of make them bigger and then shrink down to how big you need it just to keep the resolution looking nice. And so if we turn on my layers here, you can see this little safe zone here. All of my important stuff is inside that safe zone. I don't usually make a ton of layers, especially on simple stuff like this. Whatever you need to keep separate for Photoshop post-processing, whatever you might be wanting to do with that. Like for example, I have this big planet here. I have the same thing, like a white version of it in the background because I know that I'm going to be adding a bit of a glow in Photoshop to this guy. And so it just ended up being easier to have a white object so I could do the glow effects on this instead of on this, so I could have like just a solid white glow all around it. That was just the look I was going for. In addition to the stuff on here, usually I like to keep just to the side a proportionate size, see if it's right in the cut area of a regular card, just to kind of see, to make sure that my text isn't getting too small, or mostly that. I've seen a lot of people kind of make cards and the text on them ends up printing like super tiny, because it is really hard when you're working on a screen to kind of have that sense of scale of how big it will be when it's printed, because you're going to be working with it like when it's at huge scale. It's kind of hard to have a concept of how small your text might be. So that's why I just kind of like to keep over here to the side. This is just, I pulled this from Google and just scaled it to fit inside where the black cut line is. But that's just me. Something I like to do, just a good practice of mine. And so, depending on how you lay this out and how you want your layers to be for post-processing, from going to Illustrator to Photoshop, my workflow is a little bit goofy as far as that goes. What I like to do is I kind of save out separate Illustrator files per like the big important layers. Like, this is going to be the background image that just has, like, the texture on it. Like, nothing, no post-processing really needs to be done to this other than just the overlay texture for it. So I would go and I would save as a new Illustrator file. And as you can see here, I have a couple different Illustrator files of all of my different layers. And so, well, not all of them. All the ones that need to be separate for post-processing. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but that's just the easiest way that I figured out how to do it. But yeah. And if you'll notice too, my background extends even farther past this little red line. That's not necessary. I just like to do it just because sometimes, I don't know, Illustrator, like, you can say, it says that it's like snapping to the line, but really it's like just a tiny bit off. And in addition to that, if you have a shape, and you wanted to have like this half circle be on your card, you don't need to cut the shape to fit this outside bleed edge. If you save it like this and then save out a new Illustrator file just like this, when you open it up in Photoshop, it will already be chopped off. But yeah, I guess that's just to kind of show that. So let's save one of these out. So I just save these as an Illustrator file. I'm coming into Photoshop. Oh, what are you blinking about? We're going to open up that test background that we had just saved out. And this is pretty important in this import window. Mostly importantly, this will be set to, I think the default will be bounding box. You need to set this to the bleed box. This will cut it off at that bleed line. And this also is extremely important. Print standard is 300 pixels per inch. And I'm not sure what the default is set here, but make sure that your import setting is set to 300 pixels per inch. But yeah, as you can see, this size is kind of funky, but that's why I made a template. And then we just hit OK. And I just kind of do this for all of the separate layers, and then kind of layer them on top of each other, like if I want that. And then if I just want the planet and the people, we will do, or person, we'll do the same thing. Save as, test planet, sure. Go here, open it up, test planet, make sure it's set to bleed box and 300. In Photoshop, we can just duplicate this over to test background. And there we go. Do that for kind of all the important bits you need. And this method works for me. Like, it's probably more work. Like, you can save this out as like a Photoshop file from Illustrator, but I've always had issues with that, and so this is just the way I like to do it. If you find a better way, that's just fine. So this is my final Photoshop file for this ID. And like I said, really simple. I like to keep things clean. Pretty much all I have here is I have all of this is just one background layer. I have this planet here. I have this white here, which is kind of the little bit of an edge glow just to kind of set it apart and make it not look so flat. And then this really nice paper texture that I found. I always think it helps a lot on these flatter stuff to kind of add that texture, just because it creates some really nice stuff. Like, this is kind of blotchy in here, which is kind of neat, and especially like the really deep folds. So you could experiment with that, experiment with like a blending modes, whatever that's called, and then opacities. But yeah, my workaround is really simple. This is the simplest one that I've really ever made. I thought it would make a good little tutorial run, but yeah, really easy to make pretty cool looking designs. I think you can do a lot as well with just really simple kind of geometric shapes. That's kind of just the style that I like. But yeah, not too complicated. As far as saving this out and going to the printer, all you really need to do is save this out as a JPEG. Oh, I already saved a test. I'll just save over that. Now maximum quality. And the website that I like to get these printed from is a website called makeplayingcards.com. It is really the only place that I've used. It was the first professional, quote-unquote, I guess, place that I got these printed from. Just some factory in China. But they did a really good quality, and I've never had a reason to try to print anywhere else because I've been really happy with it. And we can do, I guess, a quick walkthrough of that. So to print the right size, this is little quick links for game cards. You need the 63 by 88 millimeter size. And paper options, there are a couple. I would never get this 270 printed. That's just seems like it would be super cheap. I have, I think I own a few cards that are this 300 GSM. And, I mean, it's okay. It's cheaper than what I like is the 330. But if you want as close as possible to, like, a regular Netrunner card, then you're gonna definitely want to go with the 330 GSM. Superior smooth option. I have gotten some cards printed in linen. I don't like how it kind of blurs a lot of detail, and I have no idea what the plastic is about. So, I really like the 330 GSM. Pick how many you want. Pick if you want. I have never gotten this gloss finish. I think the default finish is nice. Holographic, all kinds of whatever other stuff you would want. And if you want all of them the same size, this is pretty straightforward. You want the same image for all your fronts. And I have already uploaded my files here into my little library. So we'll just use that for now. And all you do is you drag it in. And you'll see that they also have a little dotted line here, and which is the same as the little cyan line that I have in my file. That little safe edge. But yeah, it'll just give you a little display. This won't look exactly right, like the colors are a little off just because that's how the website is. But yeah, go through that process. Same thing for the back. And go through with however you want to order. Yeah, pretty straightforward. I really like this website. And yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, all in all, really simple. Really simple, really easy if you want to try making your own designs. I haven't really used any other programs other than the Adobe suite. This is an older version that I just have a CD of. But yeah, it can probably be adapted into whatever program you need. So here's a, I guess, quick just little shot to end this video off with of the ID in person. Turned out really great. Very, very happy. Probably this video quality is not really quite showing how nice the colors look in person, but you get an idea. Another random thing to keep in mind too, when things are printed, they typically come out a little bit darker than they appear to be on screen. That's just because it's just how ink works, I guess. But yeah, just a random thing to keep in mind. I like to do test prints of just a small run, just to be sure before I do a big one, but yeah, they're pretty close though. So thank you guys for watching, and keep an eye out for hopefully more videos. Thanks guys.